This is Triple Play Fantasy Basketball with the Prime Team. I'm Coach James Lewis. On the other end are the Mendelson brothers, the face here at Triple Play Fantasy Basketball. We're here to talk NBA post draft, talk some trades, get into some offseason, which for some people is the most exciting time of the year because once the games start, you realize that there are only 4 teams that can win the NBA championship. So, Dave, how we looking, my guy?
Man, I'm happy the Denver Nuggets won. Like to see new teams win NBA championships. Also happy you guys brought me on the basketball pod because I've listened to your guys every single week episode when you talk free agency, you talk waiver wire, you guys are talking, making your takes, and you guys are so wrong with a lot of them. So I'm here to help bring in the right mind, give our audience the basketball knowledge they deserve. But in all honesty, love chopping up with you guys. I think we're gonna have a great talk
Well,
today.
I'm glad it only took 47 years for the Denver Nuggets to win a championship and for us to get Mendelson, David, that is on our podcast.
David's
on the other end.
You know what? I mean, it's too early to say how they're going to pan out, but I'm Eamon Thompson and David's Oscar Thompson.
Are you saying you're the better brother? Because I don't think that
I got drafted early before you. I'm the one that's going to make more money, and that's why I said we can only talk about this now because the latter could have the better pro career.
It only took 90 seconds for you to mispronounce a name.
Yeah, look at that. Look, that's what you've had every week on the show.
It's Amen Thompson. So
Amen.
Get it right before we start our fantasy show, and we're drafting him.
Oh man! I mean, I'm done. I'm done with the DeJounte Murray.
Yeah, DeJounte, as formerly
known
as.
Doc, you got to say it right.
I do got to mention though the speaking of the Thompson brothers, in particular, they seem inseparable. They seem like they are stuck at the hip. I mean, I don't think they've ever not played together. This is going to be a transition for the two of them to be in two destinations that are going to be, both rebuilding phases, and they're going to be key pieces to that. They both seem like very, very intelligent people that come from good stock and background, and I think they're going to be great additions to the franchises. And hey, this might be a super solid top 5 of an NBA draft.
Yo, James, did you hear this quote from that they gave yesterday via Cassidy Hubbard? So
no, I didn't hear from her.
So they talked about splitting up, that they won't play in the same time, and Amen Thompson said he got to keep the PS5. I'm losing everything. It's like a bad divorce.
Okay, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. Funny. It was also like, man, it was like once like Amen got drafted, there was this whole big ordeal, and it was almost like suited that Asar went next, because if he would have had to wait, like it would have been drama city at that table.
Oh yeah.
All right. First things first. Fit of the night. There was a lot of flashy suits and different attire from the evening. There was a lot of tears. Like those are some of my takeaways from the NBA draft. What were your main takeaways or things that you want to point out? Or a shout out. Somebody had the most solid fit of the evening's festivities.
I mean, there's only one answer for the fit, right? There's one. Come on. It's Grady Dick. That jacket that he had, the all red. That's what everybody's going to remember about that draft. I'm trying to pull it up on my school computer, but anytime you type in Grady Dick, it blocks it. So I can't even Google search his name.
Yeah, the shout out to Dorothy. We're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it will go down in infamy. I thought it was ugly.
Scoot wore an Indochino. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, the bedazzled look, and with the chain. His chain.
I was gonna say he buttoned it down like a third of the way, had the chain rolling.
He definitely has a swag to him.
Taylor Hendricks
he can pull that off. Not everybody can pull that off.
Taylor Hendricks had a nice pink suit also. But yeah, I mean Grady Dick in that sequin outfit, that was pretty crazy. Have we seen as many second round picks fly like we have in the last year?
I feel like it's definitely been a trend over the last few years where teams are just throwing second round picks, like just kind of like dollar bills just doing that. Because
I'm not even just talking about with like the Wizards and Beal where they got 6, or the Wizards trade up 1 spot and
trade 2 away,
and then 2 second round. But
should
like,
we talk about that?
Even Jay Crowder, netted like 3 second round picks at the trade deadline and didn't do anything for Milwaukee. Like, nobody trades first; it's just seconds.
How long are we gonna
after the Gobert thing? And people are scared to. It's like, we'll give you 6 second round picks, but
pick swaps and second round picks are like the new trading criteria.
How long before we start talking about, since we're all Wizards fans, we talk about the Wizards pick?
All right, let's get it.
Unless James has it on the rundown later on, because
I mean, like, this is a freestyle show, so I'm wearing the Brad Beal jersey, maybe one of my last times that I'll be able to wear it. So we might as well talk some Wizards basketball. The pick was just completely blindsided me. I didn't value Bilal Coulibaly like that. Like, why would we trade 2 second round picks to move up 1 spot? I would have loved the pick that we actually made, which was Jarris Walker.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I think that we got fleeced by Indiana. Like, they wanted Jarris Walker the whole time anyways. They could have just drafted him, but they're like, no, we're going to take this guy because we heard that you guys really love him.
So what I read was Utah at 9 wanted to hop up at 7, and the Wiz really wanted him.
Okay.
And so I'm wondering, because like Jarris Walker, I think, is a good building block. Like, he's someone that gives you that motor. They were talking about how rare it is for 5-star recruits to want to play for a tough coach like Kelvin Sampson. And that just kind of speaks to his character. I'm wondering if they think his offensive game is capped. And so if they don't want, to spend that high pick on someone that you're just depending on kind of like a hustle and defensive side. I mean,
we're talking about Jarris Walker's offensive being tapped.
Yeah.
He's
1 year out of Houston. Like, and they didn't even utilize him in offense. Like,
he shot 34% from 3 last year.
Yeah, he's got good form. Plus, it's like, who do the Wizards have in the post? You trade away Porzingis. Like, the next man up, like, your question mark, Kuzma's probably not coming back. Daniel Gafford. Like, and Denny Avdia might be your starting power forward right now.
Honestly, yes. Corey Kispert's going to run the 4 too.
I like Corey.
The starting Kispert. 3 right now fitting. It's crazy.
I do like. What do you guys think of the new backcourt of Jordan Poole and Tyus Jones?
I like that.
I think that we are the worst team in the NBA.
Good.
We've been waiting for this for a decade, I feel.
Yes, thank you. Finally go in. We only just lost all the value that we had potentially in Brad Beal 2 years ago. Like, once you send ball away, send everything away.
Blood is on his hands. Let's not let him off the hook. Never forget he punched someone in a parking lot at Capitals game years ago.
So Bilal definitely fits the timeline as far as like the rebuild. I'm not as raving about him because offensively, I think that he just has so much to build from for what he has right now. Like, he seems like he's athletic, he's a high flyer, but everything else, like creating your own shot, just any of the in-between moves, he's got so much room to grow. But he is very, very young. I really liked the idea of adding a Jarris Walker as a centerpiece going forward. He's so young. And then if not Cam Whitmore, who fell big time, but we'll talk about that.
We should have traded back up to get him. But I think the reason that they took him, they said like he was 5'10", then hit a growth spurt to 6'6", and a 7'2.5" wingspan. And so I think like they view him as more raw and like a higher ceiling. I mean, would you guys agree arguably the best 2 players in the NBA, no matter how you rank them, are Giannis and Jokic?
Yeah, I would say
right now. I think it's definitive that those.
And then Embiid's got to be 3, right?
Kevin Durant, like.
But those 2 unquestionably are the top 2, whatever rank you put them in.
They're MVP, multiple time MVPs, and they're both Finals MVPs within the last 5 years. So
exactly.
I heard on that point. I heard
prospects.
Oh my, his name's escaping me now. But basically, Ryan Russillo, he said that there's only 3 players in the NBA he would trade for Victor Wembanyama. Like, he would trade Victor Wembanyama for. Those were the 2. I believe he said Embiid was the 3rd. If you guys had Victor Wembanyama Is there any player in the NBA that you would trade him for, or how many players would you trade him for?
Jokic, and that's it. I wouldn't even trade him for Giannis because I think, like, with Giannis, I think the injuries are starting to pile up a little bit. And I think as soon as his explosiveness is gone, that he's going to be a limited player unlike Jokic, who can dribble, who can rebound, who can pass.
I don't think I'm trading him for anybody.
I'd trade him for Giannis all day, easily.
I'm not trading him for anybody.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, the thing about Wembanyama is the contract. Like he's going to have a great contract compared to the others.
That's why I wouldn't do it.
I mean, those other two guys are 26 years old, and they are both going to be.
I mean, I would trade
Hall
of
Famers
Jokic.
and one of the greats.
I would trade him for Jokic all day long.
Yeah, I would do Jokic. I would do Giannis. I would think hard about Luka. But it's hard. I mean, like that was because those are three proven guys that are going to be, top 25 all time. That's the only reason. It's like you have a guarantee in that, but at the same time, it would be hard to walk away from the potential that is Wembanyama. I was showing the screen on some of the trades that took place since we were on the whole Wizards talk to start things. So Bradley, they go Bradley Beal for a $251 million contract, which gets the Wizards off the books for that. So them not getting, a bunch of firsts, they got all their seconds. Like the Suns didn't have any first round picks to give. They don't have a single draft pick till 2030 because of the whole Kevin Durant thing. So, they're gonna have to fill in the gaps. I think Jordan Goodwin is gonna be a good piece off the bench.
I'm kind of mad the Wizards got rid of him, Coach. He's creeping in that steals court when he plays.
Yeah, and I'm kind of excited for him to actually get a team an opportunity to play for a team that is competitive and he can fit around some of these other really good players. Of course, what Wizards got in return was Chris Paul. The pick swaps that they may be valuable down the road if the Suns suck after 4 years of it maybe not working, but they flip Chris Paul and they get a decent return. They get Jordan Poole, who the jury is still out on him. We'll see his potential. He's got a large contract and he's going to boost his value up because he's going to get usage rate out the ceiling. He'll probably average mid-20s next year because he's going to get all of the opportunities. Just taking a short look at some of the other trades, and you guys can chime in, whatever. The Grizzlies have been trying to get Marcus Smart for years now, and I think he's a perfect fit next to a Ja Morant, and he's, that defensive guy that's going to fill in for Dillon Brooks, but he's just a little bit smarter of a player, no pun intended. What's your feeling on that move?
They needed a vet besides Steven Adams.
And it's the Tony Allen, right? The Tony Allen role, former Boston Celtic to Memphis to bring defensive tenacity.
Yeah.
Now you got this. It's just the same type of player. But yeah, I think they, especially with the fact that Tyus Jones is gone, they needed another backcourt player to number one, obviously when Ja Morant's gone, but number two, to have in the backcourt with him. And I think with Marcus Smart, not only does he bring a nice defensive presence, a good veteran leader, but he also is a player that can shoot. And that in the NBA, you can never have too much shooting. So Ja Morant's driving to the basket. Marcus Smart can go out in the corner and hit threes. We saw him do that with Boston. I like the fit. I just kind of am shocked at how much it costs to get him. Maybe you guys are not as shocked, but
it was just a first round pick and then another first round pick that they used somebody else. They had them to use, and right now they're in a short window where they're one of the best players and teams in the league, and they needed some type of fix for the Dillon Brooks.
They were second seed and got bounced by the Lakers in 5-6 games. They didn't even take them 7, and then they had home court, and they're a regular season team, so they did need that postseason experience. What's that starting five looking like when Ja is healthy? Is it Ja at the 1, Marcus Smart 2, Desmond Bane 3, Jaren Jackson 4, and Steven Jackson 5, or Steven Adams 5?
Yes.
Was Steven Adams their starting 5 before? I thought he came off the bench. Maybe I'm wrong.
He was hurt in the playoffs. That affected their run. I mean, they were playing amazing ball with him.
He got hurt in February because he sprained his PCL. And then
Jaren Jackson was playing the 5 once he got it. Then they shift him over to
that's what I'm wondering.
And Ja Morant got hurt too. Let's take a step back on that. And then he had the whole other stuff pending. So next year is a refresh year. and you're hoping that Marcus Smart, kind of cleans that up a little bit. The other part of this trade is, Tyus Jones is a big piece. He's a starting point guard in this league. He's proven that with Ja out. He's one of the best assist to turnover ratio guys the last 3 years. I think he's been in the top 3 all of those years. I think he'll gain some value. The Wizards can move him in the future for assets. And then I think the winners here is Boston. They get Kristaps Porzingis and they managed to get the 2 first-round picks. Like, how the hell did they do that?
That's
I mean,
the
I know that
question.
the contract thing with Porzingis only being on a one year thing, but you throw Porzingis in with that Boston lineup. You already had Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon to fill in the shoes for Marcus Smart. Like, they had enough to, like, if you unload Smart, like, you're fine. Now you got Porzingis is coming off his best year. Does this make Boston the title favorites?
I think it does. This is their all-in year. Like, if you think about it, they're going to have to pay Jaylen Brown. They're going to have to pay Derek White.
Jaylen Brown's still going to be there?
I think so. I didn't think so at first, but I think this trade makes them the favorite. Like, they're going to have to pay Derek White. They'll probably get rid of at least one between Grant Williams and Robert Williams. I think Al Horford stays. They're going to have to get creative with that salary cap. And Porzingis opted into the player option this year, but he'll probably want something more long-term. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Brogdon. And they have little depth at the guard. Like, the whole reason the first trade got held up is because Brogdon had some serious issues. And David, James, you heard it from me here first. I think he's going to need the equivalent of Tommy John surgery for basketball.
Well, they said the injury is so bad that they said no team is going to even try to acquire him.
So he had an elbow injury, and they didn't go into the specifics, but I'm guessing elbow is probably like a UCL. And James, I don't know if you remember, and David, I don't know if you remember, he shot one shot against the Heat. It was like a 3 that was 2 feet beyond the line, and he airballed it by like 4 feet. And I'm like, he doesn't have any strength in that elbow.
Well, they benched him down the stretch.
Exactly. If you can't shoot.
My guy, Matt. What's up, man?
What's going on? How you doing, fellas?
Good. How are you? I was telling him, I was like, my man Matt's coming in here. He's going to educate the people, give them some good basketball knowledge. You came in right as we were talking about the Celtics trade.
Oh, yeah.
You had any thoughts on it? How do you think the Celtics made out with that?
Honestly, I have mixed feelings about all the trades that have happened, but I feel like they needed more of a leader. I think it might have been better if the Celtics got CP instead of the Warriors, because he would hold everybody accountable. But I think they wanted to get bigger, well, I guess, which they did. It's going to be tough to guard 3 guys that can shoot and spread the floor like they can. But if I'm remembering correct, they lost Smart, correct?
Yeah, he got traded to the Grizzlies.
So I think Smart was that guy for them, like that attitude guy, like their Draymond Green. So I think that might hurt him a little bit because I don't know if anybody else in their team has that personality. And I honestly think that's what they're missing to take them over the top in the finals. So I have mixed feelings about it. I personally don't know if it was the greatest trade for them.
Can I throw something out there?
Yeah, go ahead.
What if Westbrook signed a 1-year deal with Boston?
Stop. Bro, stop.
I don't think that's not going to work.
No. That's
not gonna work.
I feel like there's a limited market for him. He wants to win.
That's not. But you do point this out, and Matt makes a good point about the whole Marcus Smart leader person in the huddle conversation, which I feel like is going to probably be overlooked until we get to playoff time. But here we are talking about Westbrook, and no one's going to pay him $46 million as he was getting this year. Yeah. But he is an unrestricted free agent. You're saying Boston.
I mean, just think how many suitors there would be. Maybe the Clippers, but like Lakers wouldn't bring him back. Like Warriors don't.
Of
like,
course, not teams, the Lakers, bro.
But that's what I'm saying.
The worst
how many teams are going to want to bring in Westbrook? Teams that are developing their
zero.
Talent.
Exactly. I want to open that. So David says 0. What say you, Matt?
Honestly, I'm pretty close to 0. Maybe 2%. It has to be a team where
somebody's gonna get him. He's not done. Like we saw him for even if the Clippers bring him back.
He's not done, but it's just like he ruins chemistry. Like he needs the ball in his hand. He doesn't shoot a good percentage.
I would say I agree with what you're saying. The best Westbrook we saw last year were when both guys on the Clippers got hurt and he could be the man. So it's tough for him. It's tough for him to go be like he can't do what James Harden does and transfer his game and lead the league in assists and not put up the buckets when he still can. It's going to be tough for him to find a landing spot.
Yeah, I mean, Matt touched on it. Like, if you're a contender, what is Russell Westbrook is almost like a cancer. It's almost like he's the type of guy where it's like he tries to play different roles, but at the end of the day, I feel like it's the team chemistry and everything else kind of goes down. And is he signing money for on a rebuilding team? Like, is he going to play for a team that's like young and
why would a rebuilding team want him?
That's what I'm saying.
I
It's
don't
like,
know.
where's the fit?
This is my thought. I was just thinking about this a little bit right now as we're speaking. I think San Antonio isn't the worst idea to bring him in.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a 1 year, they don't
hate
have a point guard. He's going to be able to do a nice pick and roll action with Victor. And obviously, they're not going to win the championship in Victor's first year, but bringing some of that moxie, that veteran like intensity. Like, one thing you can't take away from Russell Westbrook is that he plays harder than anyone else. And you know, you got Vassell, you got Keldon Johnson, like some of those, you know, attributes may be able to rub off on these guys. So and don't forget Jeremy Sohan was looking fresh last night.
Of course you had to bring him up, James.
Actually, you did, but but Russell Westbrook, like I think that they don't have a point guard. You know, they're gonna bring back Che Jones, but he's a backup. And, you know, just see it out for a year.
You look at the list on here, Harden, Kyrie, D'Lo will probably all get signed before him. So it's going to be, you know, what teams are left after that.
But if I'm San Antonio and I'm looking at him and D'Lo, like, nah, I don't want a character like D'Lo to come in and rub off whatever he has with Victor. And Pop and Russell, they have relationship history. I mean, he played Team USA, so he's not foreign to him being part of the equation. Just a thought. I didn't think we were going to turn this into a Russell Westbrook podcast, but for some reason, he just still is super intriguing, even though his better days are behind him. When we're looking at the rest of the free agency, Chris Middleton turned down the $40 million. That was huge. Like, what's happening with that? I mean, does that have implications that, you know, Giannis might want to leave too if Chris actually does walk and they don't get a return? Like, maybe, I don't know, I'm thinking off the top of my head, Kyle Kuzma might be able to fill in that position a little bit. What do you think about these free agents? James Harden is a big one that's out there. Kyrie Irving, D'Lo, we just mentioned, and Nikola Vucevic, who I got to mention, part of this trade was finally finalized last night with Orlando. They sent him for Wendell Carter Jr. in the 2 first-round picks, which ended up being Franz Wagner and then last night, Jet Howard. So I think Orlando made out pretty good with that trade. What do you guys think about some of the free agents? I'm going to hit you up, Dave.
I'm going to get to Matt first. Matt, I feel like I had some thoughts. I saw him ready to, especially on the Bucks stuff.
So I was reviewing the team because I was still thinking about Westbrook. I know we got off of it, but two teams off a quick glance, I felt like that could use him, and he might be able to play how he plays with those teams. My first thought was the Bucks, and my other thought was the Heat. I think he could play freely with the Bucks, and
we're still talking about Russell. You're saying?
I was going to get off of it when you brought the Bucks back up. That the Heat and the Bucks were 2 teams I thought he might fit well on. I think the Bucks need another superstar, and he thinks similar to Jimmy Butler. And excuse me, not the Bucks, the Heat. And I think the way he pushes the ball would complement how Giannis plays. So I could be wrong, but those are 2 teams off a quick glance. That's what I was thinking, Dave. That's what was in that.
I could see it, to be honest with you. Those are 2 teams with like.
I can't see it with Milwaukee unless Drew's out of there. They need shooting. Like, that just makes me think about Eric Bledsoe. But if Miami can't find, like, you know, Damian Lillard or somebody out like that, like, Miami definitely saw point guard flaws when it came down to the end. And yeah, him and Jimmy, I think their personalities will help boost the team. So, like, I do see a slight window that could possibly work.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if you guys did you guys hear Brian Windhurst when he talked about the Heat culture and what like they do with that they have weigh-ins every week for the team, and like they check like their body fat, what they're eating. Russell Westbrook's the type of body type where he would fit in with that team too. It's like you don't need him to worry about him overeating. You don't need to worry about him not giving lack of effort. So I feel like that Heat culture vibe, I feel like he would fit in well too.
Yeah, his body fat percentage checks the marks.
Yeah,
as we see him every game day. Other free agents that loom, Fred VanVleet is a big one.
Oh, speaking of Fred VanVleet, I know y'all can talk about this with me too. You guys remember Marquise Noel from the NCAA tournament, Kansas State, the 5'7" guard that averaged like I think he averaged
2-way with Toronto.
Yeah, 2-way with Toronto. He could be the new Fred VanVleet. I feel like if I'm not mistaken, wasn't VanVleet undrafted?
Yes.
I think Noel, like Toronto does a really good job with these guards that go undrafted and they work with them. Obviously, Noel, there was a video I saw on YouTube yesterday, Marquise Noel guarding Cam Reddish. They were playing one-on-one and just saying size doesn't matter necessarily. Like,
yeah, I saw that.
You saw the video too?
Yeah.
So, like, I think people are, I mean, Marquise Noel, I knew at 5'7", you're not going to get drafted, but like, man, the man has got heart. If he was 6'3", I think he'd be a lottery pick.
Yeah, he's Isaiah Thomas-esque. Like he's really that small and that damn good. We'll see how that pans out. We all know that Toronto is a big fan of bigger players and playing big on all their positions. He definitely will be intriguing as a 2-way into the G League team. Like they're gonna get a lot more fans than other places. I think it was a smart signing. But people that shocked me as far as not getting drafted, and this wasn't even something I wanted to mention, but Terquavion Smith didn't get drafted. And he would have been a first-round draft pick if he came out as a freshman, came back as a sophomore. And guess what? He got better. Like he improved his playmaking. He improved his ability to pass the ball. And he goes undrafted. So does Saldi Aldama, who just came off of the national championship for UConn. And he still had 2 years left. Like it's crazy that at the end of the day, like if you go out early, like you don't get drafted. Like at what point are you getting misinformation? Is your agent like steering you wrong? And like now what do you got to do? You're gonna play professionally overseas or make your way through the G League like Marquise Noel. Like what's your thoughts on players maybe that weren't drafted yesterday, and you know what can you make of it?
Yeah, so I guess like I rephrase the question, just like your thoughts, I guess if you're guaranteed to be drafted and then you find out you stay a year and then you kind of get screwed over by basically like you go back, you say that you're going to be, you know, they give you that promise that you'll improve your draft stock and then you go undrafted. I know, Matt, I know your background, like you were in the NFL like for a little bit, and like I'm sure you've kind of had similar talks like that and you know, obviously in a different sport. So I just need to hear your perspective on it.
It's rough. So one person I think of, I don't know if you guys remember Brian Leonard, but Brian Leonard was an animal, and he stayed an extra year where he was projected to go early because it was passed along that he couldn't play running back and had to play fullback on the next level. So he had to prove that, and he stayed, and I think he went second round the next year. But it's tough. It's all situational. It's got to be the fit, and they got to see what you and your coaches see. So you may have balled out. Maybe you're a power forward, but the league doesn't see you as a power forward, or this isn't the year for you to come out with power forwards. Or maybe you left because you can't afford to stay in school and still feed your family. It's all situational, you know. Some guys go play that extra year, but their intention was to play 1 year, and they weren't in school for school, you know. So it's a tough call. Football's a little bit different because you have no choice but to stay to 3 years. But it's a tough call.
If football was like basketball, to where you had to say, do you think it would be really different with people coming out early?
I think the only position I could really do that for the most part are skill positions. Just because your body, as a lineman, your body's got to develop, and you got to go through some things to be able to play O-line and D-line. But I definitely think guys would come out early. Like if you're coming out of high school running like a 4.3, 4.4, I think guys would try. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Matt, on this football tip, I really want to ask you about the young Anthony Black. So his first scholarship was college football. Baylor was heavy on him. He was one of the best wide receivers in the nation. He decided to go the route of basketball, 6'7", 190. Obviously, like that kind of makes a little bit more sense. But if he plays college basketball, he's got to play 3 years. So, like, you know, that's almost a no-brainer if somebody's going to try to make a decision between college basketball and college football, knowing that you have an opportunity that maybe that you're going to come out early, in which it was said, because I was listening to one interview that he had on the Knuckleheads, is that his plan was to kind of go one and done. But it, like college football, making you play 3 years shuts the door on the idea of, like, you know, even doing that. I know a lot of colleges frown on that and don't agree with that, and Baylor might be one of the only schools that encourage that, or we've seen that in the past. But what's your takeaway as far as, you know, a player like Anthony Black not being able to play both?
That's actually a good question for me, because I wanted to play both. I actually wanted to do. You don't know me well, but I'm kind of crazy. I wanted to do three sports in college. So I was
I
pretty
like
good
your
at
style,
track.
Matt. I like it.
I was pretty good at track. I was all conference and decent for basketball, and obviously I was very good at football. So I was telling coaches that I wasn't coming unless I was playing basketball, or vice versa. And a couple coaches considered it. The higher D1s didn't. And then I I was one of the top in state in track, so I want to do that as well. But once I got into the football schedule, I let that go. But
What did you?
I,
I'm just curious because I coach a little basketball and track. What was your event? Were you throwing a shot? Or were you
I was
doing?
throwing. So I ran and threw, but so I actually did track 1 year. When hindsight's 2020, I wish I did it freshman and sophomore year, but I did it my junior year and then tore my ACL my senior year. But out of the 1 year I did it, I finished 7th in the state in shot, and we were one of the higher 4x1 relay teams in the state. But you can't tell me that if I threw my senior year, I wouldn't have been a state champion in shot.
Well, with 1 year experience, like, I mean, the amount that you gain by learning the techniques and everything with the shot, like, I mean, if you clearly have the body for it. So it's just about learning and honing in your techniques, and you can go from 7-1 if
Yeah,
you're inexperienced.
100%, 100%.
All right.
But I do think you should be. I think schools should be more lenient on multi-sport athletes. I feel like it mostly works with track and football, but you don't see it as often as like when Julius Peppers or who was that tight end for the Falcons, or they used to let it go a
Tony
little bit.
Gonzalez.
Yes, they used to let it go a little bit back in the day,
Antonio
but
Gates.
yeah,
Yeah.
but now it starts, I guess, with high school and elementary school where people want to be one sport athletes, one track minded, whatnot. Then it gets carried over in college sports, kind of, you know?
And I feel like all of this conversation can lead to a whole different pod because, you know, we didn't even mention baseballs. Like, you either go pro or go college route. You know, it's everything is so completely different. But we are here talking about basketball, and let's get to, you know, the meat of the whole meal here, which is, you know, the NBA draft was last night, and it was a spectacular night, a night that I said it was full of tears and style. Matt, you mentioned you missed that part. The Spurs get a generational talent in Victor Wembanyama. It was the place that he wanted to go to. You know, he's French. He's got ties with Tony Parker, and this is the place that he always dreamed on going to. And so for it to kind of come to fruition and for it to happen, and the last time we saw a prospect like this, it was LeBron James. And guess what? He went to the Cleveland Cavaliers, the team that he wanted to go to. You know, I think that's really cool and awesome that it happened. You know, much will be talked about the Spurs going forward. Devin Vassell, Kelton Johnson, you know, Sohan, they had a great future, but the Hornets were in a pickle here. They had Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller on the table, and now it's coming out that it was Brandon Miller the whole time. What's your take on that before we get into the whole Blazers Scoot Henderson situation?
Well, I remember the incident that happened at Alabama with the shooting, and he was one of like in this, you know, kind of being investigated for all that. obviously, I guess they did their homework enough to make sure that they felt confident taking him number 2. It was interesting because I don't know if you guys saw that Woj tweeted out earlier in the day that they were strongly leaning towards Scoot Henderson. So obviously, I guess that's a big smokescreen that they were putting out.
No, it wasn't Woj. It was Shams.
Oh,
Actually,
Shams. Okay.
Woj kind of put it out there. He kind of took like a little jab and said, like, I don't know where this came from, but because you know
Okay.
they beef, they really beef.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like different players. Like I know Brandon Miller, 6'7", he can shoot. Definitely, obviously, I know they said he's not necessarily not the best ball handler, but he's somebody that has a lot of skills that will play in the NBA. Scoot Henderson,
6'8", he can handle ball. It was the right decision for
Yeah.
the team based on you have Melo Ball, who's already, you know, your clear-cut
your point guard, yeah.
superstar on your team. And him and Scoot's game, although you can see a world where they could pair and it could work, why not go with, you know, somebody that can just do everything on both ends?
Yeah.
And I think that what they addressed later on in the draft was 2 players that do some Scoot Henderson-esque things, which they got Nick Smith Jr., who, you know, is a top 3 recruit out of high school, had banged up knee at Arkansas and had kind of a rough year, but he's 6'5", and he's shown the ability to shoot off the dribble, create his own. He shows flashes on some Harden-esque type of offensive game. And then in the second round, they end up getting Amari Bailey from UCLA, who, as we all know, had a very highly touted high school career. And, you know, you maybe make up for something that you may have missed out of Scoop, but you have a guarantee in Brandon Miller, and who knows, Miles Bridges might be coming back.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear Matt's thoughts about, so with the Blazers drafting Scoot Henderson, do you feel like Dame's going to stay in Portland, or do you feel like he's like he sees the number 3 pick there, him and them and both of them in the backcourt, or you think he's done?
So it's funny that you say that, because when I saw they drafted him, my first thought was, what is the plan?
Yeah.
So I feel like this is the first year ever that it seemed like Dame has considered actually playing somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think on the Blazers' part it would be the worst idea if they drafted Scoot Henderson and tried to get Dame for maybe 2 other players that are great role players in a draft pick and start preparing for the future, because I don't have it in front of me, but I saw a list of players that they try to acquire to add to Dame that aren't even on the team anymore, that are gone. But maybe they start with Scoot, go get 2 guys that are great role players, go get another draft pick for next year, and a year or 2 down the line, they're in a better position than if they hold on to Dame and have his contract and then not able to acquire what they need. So I would say maybe less on Lillard's part, maybe more on the Blazers' part, that they're going to try to rebuild. That, in my head, that's all that makes sense.
He's at peak value, just coming off a year where he averaged 32, maybe his best year as a professional. I mean, obviously, Scoot Henderson plays his exact position, and going forward, like I know Portland and the GM comes out vehemently. We have no intention to trade Dame. We have no intention to move him. He is with us. We're locked in with both of them. But at the same time, like everybody can see it. Like go for the future. Shaden Sharp is promising. And like the whole timeline of the team, like just don't like move on from Grant. Like don't get the re-sign, and then like actually get as much value as you can. Because I know suitors like Miami Heat, who has a lot of draft capital, would love a Damian Lillard.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think that that's a move that is not going to happen anytime soon, as far as like this month or maybe even before the season. But you got to start thinking about it and searching for all the answers, because they wanted, and Dame in particular, he wanted Mikal Bridges. He said, let's trade the 3 pick for Mikal. And the Nets didn't budge because, of course, Mikal was balling out of control when he got traded to the Nets. But if you can't pull that type of trigger off, like, you know, I think it's best even for both parties to let's move on.
He was loyal for a long time, but at a certain point, like you're 30, was he? I think he's like 31, 32. I think he's 32. At some point, like, you know, this team's not built to win anything in the next few years, and you're in the prime of your career. why would you want to stay there at this point? And you gave everything you had to Portland. And it's just like at this point, you got to do right by both parties. I feel like it's I know it's switching sports again. It's almost like Matthew Stafford with the Lions. Like Matthew Stafford played with the Lions, amazing quarterback for them for over a decade. And at some point, it was just like, hey, I'm on the last few years of my career. I want to win a championship. Let's, it's kind of like I paid my dues, nothing against the city, but I need to go win a championship. And like he did, he went out with the Rams and won it the next year. So I kind of feel like Dame's kind of almost the equivalent in basketball. It's like he's been loyal to that city, a very small market city. It's like trade me to, whatever team that, has the potential assets to give back. That's a contender and make both parties happy here.
Yep, the time is right. Moving on, 3 of the best young teams as far as talent is concerned. It's not reflective on them being good next year. But I think that the Rockets, Pistons, and Magic at pick 4, 5, and 6 picked up really, really good assets going forward, and potential stars in a minute. Ausar Thompson, good fits. I think the Rockets needed a point guard like I'm in with some maturity, unlike Kevin Porter Jr. that's filling the role right now. Ausar Thompson fills in some of the gaps that you need when you're playing alongside a Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham. He knows how to play with a smart player like his brother. And you go and you play with Cade. They have a bunch going on, including Jalen Duren. And, we'll still see what happens with James Wiseman. And then you think about Anthony Black as a 6'7" potential point guard, which they're playing point guard by committee, whether it's Markelle Fultz or Cole Anthony or Jalen Suggs. They really don't have that position certified, but it does mean somebody's probably going to be on the way out going forward. But you got Wagner and Banchero. There's a lot of young talent within these teams. And, the Rockets, I didn't even mention Jalen Green. And they get Cam Whitmore at 20. Who's your favorite young, talented team out of those 3? I'm going to start with you, Matt.
Which 3 teams you said?
Rockets, Pistons, and Magic. If you're going to go to the NBA ticket and you're going to watch season pass, like, who are you going to click in on knowing that, they might not win the game, but I'm just excited about this young talent.
I'm torn between the Magic and the Pistons. But I think I lean toward the Magic. I think they have a bunch of talent. They just need the maturity that comes with that talent to learn how to win. I think they have very strong guards and people that can score. I think they just need to learn how to play at the NBA level. And I feel like they're a little more of a show. So like you asked who you'd want to see, I think they'd be more of a exciting game as a unit instead of one particular player to go watch out of those 3 teams.
Yeah, I think they do have the one particular player, which is Paolo Banchero, Rookie of the Year. But at the same time, like Jet Howard comes in, Cole Anthony is a spectacle to watch, and they are the best team based on the record of last year and where they might go. Of course, with Pistons, you get Cade Cunningham coming back. Dave, what's your take on that?
It's interesting too, because at what point do you get so much young talent that it's too much, in the sense of like Matt mentioned, you need some type of veteran leadership. You need some type of okay, we've piled enough assets, but we need veteran leadership. We need direction. We need to kind of shape a roster. We can't just throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. We got to kind of have a rotation. We got to have the right guys mixed in, different experience levels. With the Magic, you mentioned there's a huge log jam in the backcourt, so many guards. I feel like that's the approach they've taken, is they're like, all right, they have, I know there's Cole Anthony there. Obviously, Anthony Black's going to fit in there. We mentioned a lot of their other guards too. I kind of feel like that with the Pistons. They have a good young core, Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham. Obviously now Ausar Thompson. Like they're kind of the same thing. I'm kind of like looking for, okay, you have a lot of young assets. Can you package 1 or 2 guys to bring in a couple nice veteran pieces? So going back to your original question today, I'm probably tuning into the Pistons. Magic close second. I think Matt was spot on with those. Are definitely the 2 teams, I feel like. But I'm definitely kind of looking for those teams to make the next step in terms of if you're really trying to start turning around your team, bringing in some of the veterans to really show me that you're trying to make a push in the playoffs.
And Ime Udoka, I think he's going to be a culture changing coach for the Rockets. He's going to bring some leadership, but yeah, they do definitely need some veteran laden players to help with that. Large speculation as they're chasing James Harden really hard. I don't really know how that fits in with the trajectory or how his habits are going to help the young talent around him. As we go further down the draft,
what about the Thunder?
The Thunder was the team that I had left out just because they did make the playoffs. They had
without their number 2 overall pick,
without their number 2 overall pick, with all NBA team performer and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They get Cason Wallace in the draft. They already have Josh Giddey, who's crazy. They got Jalen Williams, who is an all rookie performer. They to me are the most interesting team.
Can I ask a question though? So I might hear Matt's thoughts on this too. I like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I feel like he gets so many of his points from the free throw line though. It kind of, to me, muddies his overall skill set. Maybe I'm being I'm hating on it a little bit, but I've never been a huge fan of players that get half their points from free throws. And I know it's a skill to be able to get to the free throw line, but when I really watched Shai Gilgeous-Alexander play more this year. And I was like, man, he was 7 of 15 from the field, but 21 of 21 from the free throw line. And I'm like, okay, great. But I'm looking for players that can score without just hoping the refs bail them out. That was my biggest kind of complaint with him this year. I think, I don't know what the free throw attempts are at the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure he led the league if I'm not mistaken. So I'm curious, Matt. Obviously,
he attempted 10 a game or 11 a game.
That's a lot to attempt that. That's per game to attempt double-digit free throws. I'm curious your guys' thoughts. Is there a certain point that if someone takes that many free throws, that it kind of takes away from how good they are, and you're kind of like, can they do it without the whistle? I don't know. Your thoughts. Matt, if you want to go ahead and give your thoughts first on it.
Well, on Shai particularly, I was actually impressed with him this year because I guess the market he's in and whatnot, I never really got to watch him play. I thought he was way more skilled than I could have imagined, honestly. I thought his handling was pretty good. His shot was more accurate than I thought he could shoot off the dribble. I was fairly impressed with him. As far as the question, it doesn't really take away for a few reasons. One, because it means you're going to the rack, right? You're not settling in. Some people, Dwayne Wade, Harden, LeBron, maybe you're great actors, but it means you're going to the rack and being aggressive. And then you also have to make the free throws. So just because you're getting there, it doesn't mean you're going to make the free throws. Just an example of that.
Which he made 90% of them.
An example in my head would be Harden and LeBron. So LeBron's 92 now, and Harden just doesn't move the same. He's bigger. Obviously, he's not 92. But they don't go to the foul line as frequently because Harden can't get to the rack the same. He's still a good player, but he doesn't get to the rack with the same frequency. And LeBron, even though I think 29 a game he averaged, he didn't shoot as many free throws as normal because he can't get to the rack the same. They had to adjust their games kind of. So it doesn't take away from me. I actually appreciate that you're aggressive enough to get in position to take those, and you got to knock them down.
I just have in my head that I remember James Harden did it to the Wizards one time where he hooked himself. James, I know you remember this, where he hooked the guy's arm before the ball was inbounded, and he got the intentional foul free throw before the ball was even inbounded to him.
It's funny you mentioned Washington because Shai Gilgeous had the coldest game-winning shot against Washington this season. Yeah, he was living at the line, but when I was watching the game, he was the best player in the court by far. So I think it goes into your IQ and how smart you are, whether you can get to the line that much. I don't think that the referees are having a huddle before the game and saying let's get Gilgeous-Alexander to the line 11 times and get him, all NBA. I think it shows to his craft and the craftiness on knowing what's going to get called and what's not. I mean, he is not also running his arms into people kind of how James Harden did to your point, does it take away maybe slightly, but like you're still, producing 31 a game and you're shooting over 50 from the field and over 90 from the free throw line. To Matt's point, like you still making them when you get there. Like I still think that it might slain him a little bit, but like he's still that guy. He's still like an underrated person that people that like the casual fan does not give enough credit to. So if we're gonna shade anybody, let's shade somebody that deserves it.
So I think it's situational. Because example, it pops in my head, and I don't think you would have a problem with this, but I could be 100% wrong. Was it 3 years ago when Giannis went 18 for 18 from the line in the playoffs and nobody saw that coming? He didn't flop for any of those. Those were real fouls.
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel the same because he went to the foul line 18 times? Or do you more so mean people who are putting on a show and acting to try to get to the foul line? Which I can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more the latter. But with Giannis, I feel like with bigs, they get hacked a lot more because one, it's like obviously if a guard switches onto them, a lot of times that's the only way a guard can actually play defense on them is to try to foul them and get away with it, right? Because like obviously it's going to be a mismatch. They can go up and dunk it on them a lot of times if they get down deep enough in the post. But like I've seen so many guards in the past just have that acting thing where it's like whether it's they drive to the basket and the defender is literally holding their arms up and they're initiating the contact and they're still calling. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, what do you want them to do at that point? And that's kind of where that stems from for me. I like with someone like Giannis, especially how much he struggles at the free throw line. I think teams are intentionally trying to also put him there more, which I think kind of adds to that as well. But just the times I watched Shea in the playoffs this year, when they were, I forgot who their first round opponent was. But they, I just watched them. It was like every possession. I was just like, oh, going back to the free throw line, going back to the free throw line. And I'm like, yeah, sometimes it's a foul. Other times I was like,
they actually lost. They lost, so they didn't get into the first round.
But they were in the play-in
game. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the play-in though.
Okay.
Yeah, like I was just kind of just like there were certain times I was kind of like, I was like, you got to let them play. At least the playoffs. Like if you're gonna call that, you're gonna call that on every possession. Like that's contact that's gonna occur in basketball. So that's kind of where that fine line where I'm like, they need to have a good average double-digit free throws a game. I feel like sometimes they go over that line a little bit. Just me personally.
Shoot, I think that Giannis be running into people like bulldozing them, and he gets the call. I'm like, what the hell? But that's just me.
Yeah.
That might just be my LeBron. Like,
well, I was gonna say we were talking about LeBron. We know how you stand on that, Matt. He's the biggest LeBron stan that I've ever met. So
I felt the vibe.
That's my guy since day one. So I'm gonna defend him to the end. But I got no hate towards Giannis or Jokic or any of these players that are clearly the best players in the world right now.
You're gonna get his Wizards and Bronny's Wizards jersey when they're both on the Wizards.
Bro,
did you guys see that screenshot that someone put out on Twitter the other day?
Was it the Wizards?
Yeah, it was because they're the worst team in basketball. They're gonna be the worst team in basketball probably the next few years. So it's like they'll have the shot to take Bronny if they want to.
Yeah, LeBron, I know that quote has been taken away. I don't know how like logistical him playing with his son is. Like, I think he said it and he meant it. Like, I want to play with my son. I don't think he's gonna give up like the opportunity to like win a championship.
I bet you he does.
Play with the Wizards.
I'll bet you he does.
Okay, so he's gonna move from LA. I think it's more likelihood to join the Warriors.
No, I think he's gonna keep his spot in LA, but just for that one season, his farewell season, he'll like buy an apartment or something in Washington, and he'll play with Bronny, and they'll have an apartment together for a year or something like that. Like, and it's going to be his. I'm going to get him acclimated to the NBA. I want to set him up for success. I'm so sure
it's going to be LeBron, Bronny, and Bilal Coulibaly, and they're going to sweep the East. And yeah, right. It's never going to happen.
And it's going to be the same thing like Jordan did, man. Jordan finished his career with the Wizards.
To just follow up what Jordan did. That's his goal in life, is to follow the footsteps of a great father, like great owner, a great GM like Michael Jordan. All sarcasm intended. All right, looking more further down with the draft picks, because it was the day after the draft. We talked a little bit about Grady Dick and how he wants Drake to wear his uniform and wants to be best buddies with him. Jordan Hawkins, Montgomery County represent, Gaithersburg, Maryland. He gets drafted by the Pelicans. He's a knockdown shooter. Kobe Buffkin, big riser. Don't like the fit with the Hawks. Keontae George is a nice shooter that can do it off the bounce, and he adds to the Jazz's young pieces. Jalen Hood-Scavino, he can boogie a little bit. That he might be a valuable asset to the Lakers. He's got really solid wingspan and defensive potential. Jaime Jaquez Jr., you talk about heat culture. He fits that. He can plug and play right away on a team that just went to the championship. Cam Whitmore drops to the Rockets. They get him and they get a Thompson bro. Nice deal. I like Clowney and Whitehead to the Nets that are, kind of sort of in their own rebuilding process. What are your thoughts on some of these draft picks? And who's your best like of what we just mentioned, kind of in the middle of the draft between the late lottery and early 20s? Starting with Dave, what's your favorite pick out of this grouping?
I like Keontae George. I think the Jazz also part of the team fit.
I think he's a guarantee. So.
Yeah, he's a nice fit there. And the Jazz already, I really liked the direction they were going in. You had me last offseason when they traded away Rudy Gobert and got 4 first-round picks or whatever it was.
And swaps.
Yeah, 4 first-round pick swaps. And they obviously, you saw the young core that they're building there, Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen literally turned into an all-pro player, or all-star player just like that. So I like that. And adding him to the mix here, it's as much the player as it is the direction of the team. I think they got the right player and the right fit here. So I think he definitely, to me, kind of stands out in this list.
Matt, what about you?
I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm not sure about all the players at the end of this list. Off the top of my head, I'd probably go with Brandon Podminsky. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. The Warriors forward that they got. He's 6'5". He can score a little bit. He's pretty lengthy. I'm wondering.
Yeah, he's a shooter. He's ready to play right now. Yeah.
I'm wondering how they're going to replace Jordan Poole. I think he might be a decent person in that spot. I think they need to get a little bigger. But a 6'5" guy who can stretch the floor a little bit, and he's not bad on D. I think he would be my pick.
All right, well, this is a good time for us to talk about it because we haven't talked about it. Chris Paul went to the Warriors in that trade, by the way. So they send away Jordan Poole, who gets his face knocked off at the beginning of last season, and they elect to go with Draymond. And, of course, with Jordan Poole's contract, that opens up a lot of money. And, hey, who's a free agent? Oh, Draymond Green. There's a great chance that they re-sign him. They bring it back. CP3 is now in the mix, and there's a lot of mixed reactions. A lot of them are negative as far as bringing him in. And I'm curious to hear you guys' take on the CP3 addition to the Warriors. He's got beef with Steph Curry. They ain't like best bros. Like, he's then got shimmied in his face and all of that. And, guy like Chris Paul doesn't forget those things. What do you think about this fit and, the Warriors going forward? Is the championship window closed or and what do you think about kind of that move and what I guess it's Mike Dunleavy Jr.'s first move with also the pick Podzinski?
I have a lot of thoughts on it. I'll let Matt go first because I definitely I was talking about this yesterday when I saw it break with one of my buddies, and so yeah, I'll let Matt lead it off first.
I have a lot of questions about it. I'm torn. Personally, I feel like he has to come off the bench. I don't know if he will. I was reading some blogs and people were saying the death lineup was smaller than everybody and they made it work. If this was 27-year-old Chris Paul, that's a different story. But this Chris Paul likes to slow the ball down. Obviously, he's a great game manager. But the Warriors run. They run, they get up and down the court, and they score. I think he'll be an asset as far as comparing him to Jordan Poole. I think Jordan Poole led the team per minute for turnovers. Chris Paul's not going to turn the ball over. So that's where he's going to help you out, being a point god and his leadership. But again, he's tiny. So can him, Steph, and Clay be on the court at the same time? Clay at one time was a great two-way player. He's still trying to see if he can come back from his injury. He doesn't play defense as well as he used to. He doesn't – obviously he can still shoot, but he's not shooting at the clip he used to shoot. I think they have to acquire another piece, get a little bit bigger. Maybe CP comes off leading the second unit. gives you 15 to 17 minutes a game. Who knows if more is needed, but I think he's got to be a second unit guy. I think you got to go acquire one or two more guys. I personally, maybe it won't be popular opinion, I personally say they go get Dwight or Boogie and get him back on the team because they can both run how they like to play, get up and down the floor. Boogie can shoot. They can both bang. And I think they can fit what the Warriors like to do. And they won't need the ball a lot. They'll rebound, they'll run, and they can get buckets when needed. But I don't think Chris Paul hurts him. I just don't think he helps him.
All right, Dave, what's your take on the Warriors
They're
right now in this move? Because I mean, I want to comment on what Matt said too, but I'm gonna let you chime in as well, and I'll try to
their best scenario in this case is that he's like a Sean Livingston from back like 5-6 years ago, whenever he was last with the team. Like that's what they're hoping from this.
Ding, ding, ding. You hit it on the head, buddy. Well, both of you, Matt first with the second rotation guy.
Yeah,
second rotation. Yeah, he might close some games. He needs to be second rotation guy, and then you said it with a Sean Livingston. Go ahead.
If that's their plan, I get it. If that's not their plan, if they're thinking something else, this is going to be a huge fail. Just because Chris Paul at this point in his career, defensive liability. It's been shown. You already have people coming out saying he like holds you if you try to go to the basket. All that the stuff people have been saying. So defensive liability. He's necessarily not a knockdown shooter either at this point. So if you're going to try to space the floor, he's not somebody I'm too scared of in terms of getting a 3 off if he's open. Not saying he can't shoot, but he's not somebody.
If he's wide open, which he will be in this offense, and
is he a knockdown shooter, James? Like not like
on catch and shoot. Yes, he is. I mean, we saw that in Houston. He got a bunch of open looks, and he gets it. And to your
Houston
Sean
was a long time ago.
Was it?
Houston was a long time ago. I feel like.
I mean, like
I will.
Is he he's a bad 3-point shooter these days?
What's his 3-point percentage? I'm gonna look right now what he shot last year.
Yeah. Well, to your point, so to kind of help you out before we tear you down, the Sean Livingston argument was Sean Livingston didn't do the whole, Warrior style. He came in there and he mid-ranged you to death, right? And so everybody's talking about like the fast-paced aspect of it, which is true. Like they're the 6th fastest team in basketball, and Chris Paul is the 6th slowest player with the ball in his hand in basketball. That doesn't really make sense, but neither did Sean Livingston, but it made it work because he led the second unit and he just played how he played. And Chris Paul does that, and he is a mid-range assassin, and he's able to make younger players better. Fact about Chris Paul is any team he goes on, they get better. And so you look at Moody, you look at Kuminga, players that haven't reached their ceiling and are still waiting to hit that next clip. He might be the guy that gets them over the edge. They also got in a trade with the Wizards, nonetheless, because we start the pod, we probably ended in the same way. They got Trace Jackson Davis out of Indiana in the trade, and he was the second to last pick in the NBA draft. But this guy averaged 20, 10, 4, almost 3 blocks, almost 2 steals. He's ready to play right now, and you put him in a pick and roll, he can do some DHO with Chris Paul. I think he can fill in right away. I think he's
What's a good 3-point percentage for you guys? What's a good 3-point percentage?
All right, so the range on 3-point percentage, 35 is acceptable. 38 is what you want to do. Anything over that is like exceptional.
So Chris Paul 2 years ago, 31.7%. Last year, 37.5%. Career 36.9% shooter. But he's only reached 30. So he's reached, these are his last 5 seasons: 35.8, 36.5, 39.5, 31.7, 37.5. So he's basically, in your opinion, James, he's basically barely above acceptable.
I got 37.5, 31.7, which
is from StatMuse. So he's a career 36.9% shooter.
I got that.
So he's acceptable, right?
This last year, he was 37.5. 3 years ago, he was 39.5. The year before, 36.5.
What about the year before last year?
Before last year, on 3 attempts a game, he was 31.7. But
that's what I'm saying.
You were talking about recency bias. This last season, he averaged 37.5. And how many of those were butt naked, wide open looks that you get from playing in offense with Draymond Green, Steph Curry, and like you see people like Wiggins, they have their best career 3-point percentages when they play in offense like this, or they play with players that stretch the floor. There's going to be less asked of him, and if he is wide open, Chris Paul is going to knock it down.
I guess we'll have to.
And also, I think this also is a thing where, like, I think they're trying to save on some of the Steph Curry minutes because Steph Curry minutes has just been way out of hand for them trying to win games. And if, like, you can just have him on the court, he can orchestrate the offense. He can run the show and not, like, have your team at a disadvantage because every time Steph Curry gets off the court, they're getting sliced up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that's my take on it. Like, I'm not here trying to sell that Chris Paul takes him to the championship, and but I think that it's overvalued how bad this move was. Like, it wasn't going to work between Poole and Draymond. We saw the type of year that Poole had. He was bad. He was turning the ball over. Like, the chemistry had just gone after he got snuffed in the jaw. Like, those things happen. You get stole by your teammate. Like, there's chemistry issues. So,
yeah, facts.
Refresh for him, and we'll see what happens. Any last takes from Matt or Dave on draft picks that you really like? You really wanted to talk about Imani Bates getting picked 52 by Cleveland or whatever it was, 49, or the free agent that's looming that you're targeting as a team. Wizards don't re-sign Kuzma. He's a winning player. Let him walk. Let him go somewhere where he can play productive basketball. We'll just play the tankathon.
No, I mean, for me, good draft. Free agency definitely be exciting. Love to see all the player movement already going on. Basketball is definitely great right now. Again, talked about Denver winning their first championship. I think we're at a good point where basketball is. I'm excited to see how the rest of the offseason shapes out. I'll also slide it over to Matt.
I feel pretty similar. I'm very interested to see how free agency plays out and see how these trades play out. I think there's a lot of players out there that can take teams one way or another drastically. Like you called Westbrook a cancer earlier. I don't think Westbrook is a cancer, but I do think Kyrie's a cancer. So
yes, I agree with that.
I'm interested to see where he ends up. I'm interested.
I want him to go to the Lakers. Yeah, he helped win me a championship. Like, let's run it back. I don't care.
That's fair. That's fair.
If there's one fit situation, LeBron had him in check. So, like, if there's one situation that it could possibly maybe work, I would be LA. I just think that him and the Luka thing is disastrous based on the rest of that team. So
yeah, agreed.
Yeah, we'll see. Everybody on Twitter, leave Victor Wembanyama's sister alone. Like, she came fitted, but they came for her, man.
I didn't even seen her yet.
I didn't see her either.
Did you not watch last night? They brought all the siblings, and every time anybody got drafted, they brought him over. So Victor had his brother and his sister.
Does she look that good that people are?
She had nice looking suit, like looking good, but it wasn't like. It wasn't like out there, but that's what Twitter is coming for. It was.
You type in Victor Wembanyama on Google, the first thing that pops up is sister.
God.
What? Okay, I mean, I can see it now. Okay, I see why.
Yeah. Move over, Malika. Anyways, that's all we have here. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed, getting to talk a little basketball. Matt, I appreciate your perspective. Specifically when we were talking about the collegiate, eligibility, collegiate rules and years and how much you play. That was really good insight. Dave, good talking to you as always. Portland did not get the one pick. If you
You're lucky.
check, it was San Antonio.
I would have been
counting on it.
You would have heard that forever. They did.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. For us and everybody, Triple Play, if you like the content, please subscribe, hit a like, comment. We comment back. We do appreciate your eyeballs, and we're excited for next year's fantasy season and all these rookies that may be contributing next year.
Peace.